We all know Jim Carrey, box office god, man with a face like silly putty. After massive hits like Ace Ventura, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber, he was Hollywood's cash cow. Everybody loved him. Then in 1996, there was the Cable Guy. A divisive, unwelcome departure from fans and critics, but I would argue it's comedy genius. All of his movies at this point were pure zany comedies, but this one gave a look into something deeper.
Hello, mama.
A darkness and a character that showed the promise of range for the crowd-pleasing actor. He stepped away from the expected and did a thriller comedy. It's still Jim Carrey, but in a character that has undertones that will make you sit on the edge of your seat. So let's jump into how we missed the Cable Guy. Carrey plays Chip Douglas, a cable installer who really wants a friend. He's so endlessly desperate when he goes to do cable service on Stephen Kovacs's apartment.
Well, look who decided to show.
He immediately ingratiates him into hanging out outside of the job.
Cool. Pick you up at 6:30.
Stephen reluctantly goes along with the impromptu friendship and starts to notice a nagging persistence. Once you're the Cable Guy's friend, you will always be the Cable Guy's friend. Chip starts to help out Stephen with his on-again, currently off-again romance with Robin. Eventually, the story answers the question, what if you want out of the friendship?
You're a very nice guy, but I just don't have any room in my life for a new friend.
How does the Cable Guy handle rejection like this? Not well, to be frank. Thus triggers the Chip Douglas rabbit hole of harassment.
Hi.
He even lands Stephen in jail, with an endlessly amusing scene of Chip antagonizing him.
Oh, Billy.
Let's talk about Jim Carrey's performance, because this is probably one of the most unhinged characters he's ever played. And that's saying something, considering he's played a human cartoon in The Mask. You really have no idea what the character is capable of, and have to expect the worst around every corner. TLDR, he kills it. Matthew Broderick grounds the movie in the hapless role of Stephen, the always necessary straight man to a Jim Carrey movie. The reaction shots of Stephen looking at all the crazy things Chip Douglas does in front of him are a thing of legend.
Goodbye.
Jack Black plays a minor role, but always steals the scenes with one of his most subdued roles in his arsenal. Leslie Mann plays Stephen's rocky love interest in one of her earliest movie roles, the movie she actually met her longtime husband in, Judd Apatow. Owen Wilson got welcomed into his first big-budget comedy by getting his butt kicked by Jim Carrey, something that still irks him to this day. His delivery of lines to Robin in the diner are
So good. Hey, what's the story with our chicken, man? Have the eggs had a chance to hatch yet? Well, maybe you can go check on it for me, my friend. You're sexy.
What?
You heard me.
There's also a steady nod to all the players in the Ben Stiller show. Ben Stiller, obviously, Bob Odenkirk, Janine Garofalo, and Andy Dick. Not to mention one of the smallest roles for David Cross in his career. I love the look he gives Stephen while he's being arrested in the conference room. Sony clearly had an attitude about how the making of the movie went down. Out the gate, they released the salary being paid to Jim Carrey, which at $20 million was a lot, especially since it was about half the total budget. Then when it came to the trailer, they marketed it like it was a straight up comedy. It's not. Audiences were hungry for Ace Ventura 3. And Sony tried to make this look like it could be that, barely hinting at the film's sinister undertones.
See ya. Bye.
If you saw a trailer for Dumb and Dumber and instead got Something Wild, you'd be rightfully confused and probably annoyed. That was the general consensus of critics and audiences alike. It just didn't hit the marks that Jim Carrey movies were expected to reach. It is important to note though, it made over $100 million, so it was by no means a bomb.
There's no end to the possibilities.
Ben Stiller is a talented guy, and if you didn't know, he directed this movie. In his first major picture after Reality Bites, another movie I love, he's got a tendency to go dark with most things he attaches himself to. There's a satirical message that carries the film based on television and media's impact on society. A message that is mirrored in Reality Bites with his character's job at an MTV-like channel.
We were eating and Scramby out.
He had to balance the darkness with the light in this movie, and I think it's a perfect meld to keep you uneasy while chuckling. Even as it crescendos to a glorious end, it never drifts too heavily into pure darkness. One of the standout moments is the medieval time scene. It's absurd, over the top, and completely ridiculous. But it's also one of the best examples of how Stiller blends comedy with darkness. Chip takes the role-playing at medieval times way too seriously.
It's like when Spock had to fight Kirk on Star Trek. Best friends forced to do battle.
And what starts as a funny scene quickly turns into something much more intense. It's a perfect microcosm of the movie as a whole.
See what I'm saying?
But at its core, it's a brilliant satire that critiques how television and media shape our lives. Chip is basically a walking, talking manifestation of TV culture. He quotes old shows like The Brady Bunch and I Love Lucy,
I'm just messing with you.
uses TV metaphors in everyday conversations,
Remember Midnight Express? Oliver Stone won the Academy Award for Best Screenplay.
and pretty much builds his entire identity around what he sees on screen. And I won't lie, I'm guilty of the same with movie quotes. It's pretty funny that they reference Silence of the Lambs in the medieval time scene, at a time where you don't know how deep the rabbit hole will go in terms of craziness.
Hello, Clarice.
Broderick actually broke character in this improv moment and couldn't help from laughing. One of Chip's pivotal lines has always led my brother and I to contemplate what he means.
Somebody has to kill the babysitter.
There's a bunch of fan theories on it, and I really like that the creative team left it ambiguous. It also leads to the longevity of the movie, because there are questions to ask once it's over. Oh, Chip.
I'm fine.
Poor guy. At a holiday dinner one time, we were discussing the worst movies of all time, and my cousin said this one. I never spoke to him again.
I'm just jerking your chin.
I disagree on that, obviously. There are countless amazing moments, not to mention quotes.
I love this game.
So how did culture shift to see this movie in a different light now? How did it suddenly attain cult classic status, despite being so criticized back when it was released?
I forgive you. I only hope my neurologist will feel the same.
Well, for one, it was always great. Don't at me. Like most cult classics, The Cable Guy benefited from time. The themes that were too dark and too strange for audiences in the 90s feel eerily relevant today. We live in a world where we're constantly connected to screens, where people like Chip Douglas, obsessed with the media and desperate for connection,
So what are you doing? You want to catch a flick?
are all too real. The movie's critique of media consumption and the dangers of living through screens has aged frighteningly well. On top of that, Jim Carrey's performance has been reappraised. What was once seen as too strange is now viewed as one of his most nuanced and layered performances. Carrey showed that he could do more than just slapstick. He could tap into something darker and more complex.
This concludes our broadcast day.
Today, The Cable Guy stands as one of Jim Carrey's most daring roles, and one of the sharpest satires of the 90s. It might not have hit the mark back then, but it's clear that The Cable Guy was simply ahead of its time. In the end, Cable Guy was a movie that audiences just weren't ready for.
Well, tonight's not looking too good. How about tomorrow?
It was too weird, too dark, and too different from what people expected from Jim Carrey.
Well, maybe I shouldn't have come at all. Jerk off!
But now we can see it for what it truly is. A brilliant satire, a dark comedy, and one of Jim Carrey's most committed performances. And that's how we missed The Cable Guy. Have you seen it? What's your favorite part? Where does it land in your ranking of Jim Carrey movies? Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.